But ultimately, it comes down to just being hospitable, delivering a product that you love and that the guests will appreciate. Fundamentally, that's what it's all about.
Hey everybody, you're with Dani Valent and you're listening to Dirty Linen. We chat food. We chat food wherever we may find it, which is pretty much everywhere. And today we are heading to Sydney. We're chatting to Bill Drakopoulos at a pivotal moment. He's handing over Sydney Restaurant Group SRG to his sons as the family-owned company enters a busy period of rebranding and expansion. SRG's venues include waterfront places, Aqua, Sales, Ripples and Ormeggio, as well as some sweet neighbourhood spots. One of the restaurant topics that I'm always thinking about is the place of the family restaurant in a hospitality landscape that's increasingly dominated by groups. But what about when the group is also a family? Bill, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you.
This feels like a big moment. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, well, I've been in this game not quite 50 years, but not far off 50 years. And it's just, to be honest, it's a natural evolution. People saying, oh, are you passing it on? I wouldn't necessarily say I'm passing it on, but it's, again, rather a natural evolution of what I believe will become a generational family business. And my children, my adult children, they've got the energy and they've got the relevance and the currency and the knowledge, and hopefully with some wisdom from time to time from me, they'll continue to grow and enjoy the business and do the good things that I hope we've been doing so far.
I mean, this is a story about time passing and about, lessons learnt and wisdom able to be passed on. But take us back to the very beginning, Bill. Like, what made you want to open your first restaurant?
I'm thinking, because I reflect on this quite a bit. I think it happened when I was like a very little boy. And my parents had migrated from Greece in the 50s, and I was born here in Australia in the 60s. And life back then on the weekends was a whole lot of families, to be honest, whether they were relatives or not. Everyone had come to the house and everyone would bring some food. It wasn't, they weren't affluent times, and just that organized chaos and that hospitality and, the mums cooking and the dads on the barbecue, or whatever the case may be, and the kids running around. I just loved that organized chaos. And I knew from there, I think that's what I wanted to do for a living. Just welcome people, look after them to the best you can. So that was the initial inspiration, to be honest. And I did my schooling and so on and matriculated, but I knew that deep down I didn't want a career in an office or a conventional, back in those days it was more conventional, I wanted to be in hospitality, but I'd never been to a restaurant because we could never afford it. It was just not something on our radar back then, and restaurants weren't as approachable, I guess, in the 70s. So when I finished my high school, I decided not to go to uni, and I just started door knocking. Just wore my only jacket that I had, and my first job was as a kitchen hand at Centrepoint Tavern, which is under Centrepoint Tower, which is no longer there. But that's how I started, scrubbing pots and washing dishes. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning for me.
I'm so taken by this fact that you'd never been to a restaurant and yet that's what you saw as your future. Like, what was the rubbing up against the fantasy of what a restaurant was and the reality?
There's a lot to learn, and once I got my first job, I was just immersed in it. I did as many courses as I could. Went to college, to catering college and all that sort of thing. And there's so much to learn, and there's so much to learn about restaurant etiquette back in the day. But ultimately, it comes down to just being hospitable. delivering a product that you love and that the guests will appreciate. Fundamentally, that's what it's all about. I mean, there's a lot in between. You got to, you got to try to afford it all as a business, but fundamentally, that's what hospitality is, I think.
And I mean, you opened your first restaurant on the water, which is very iconic for Sydney. It's, when people think about Australia, often, one of the key images they have is waterfront dining on Sydney Harbour. Tell me about that journey to Aqua.
My first restaurant or cafe was in Oxford Street in Darlinghurst in the mid 80s. And that was a university degree for me. It was myself and a mate that we both worked at that stage. We were working at the Tower, Sydney Tower, or Centrepoint Tower as it's known now. So we decided to open a cafe, and it was pretty much just him and I. So that was my first, and we did very well out of that. It was just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And then we sold it. And my first waterfront restaurant was Harbour Watch at Pier 1, which is now a hotel. And I was 24 at that time. So it was a big jump. It was a big 300-seat restaurant. And I had a partner for that one, and I was there for a number of years. And again, that was an amazing learning experience, and he was a fabulous mentor for me. But I guess the most pivotal business we opened was Aqua Dining, which is still our flagship, and that was back in 2000. We actually opened on the closing ceremony of the Sydney Olympics. So that was a pretty surreal moment, and there's been obviously a lot since then.
What was the surreal? Take me into that moment. Like, what was surreal about it?
It was just, I mean, we've never had financial backers. It was my wife and I, and just somehow getting it all, raising the money to get it done, and employing the staff, and this beautiful fit out that we had. It was very contemporary. It was just overwhelming. I mean, I had 4 children under the age of 10 at the time, and no guarantee that this is going to work. And then when we, I think that I recall the day we finally opened, I had tradesmen walking out the back door and guests walking in the front door, and I got quite emotional. And my wife just said to me, "That's enough. Now go and look after our customers." So that was probably the most surreal part of the journey.
What about the offering? You want to open a restaurant, you want to look after people, but you've got this sort of, I guess, Greek underpinning to your desire to go into hospitality. But what did you want to offer to Sydney diners?
I wanted to offer a place where they feel comfortable, where they feel they can escape. Look, we've got many venues at different ends of the spectrum. Ultimately, people don't go to a restaurant just to fill their belly. People go to a restaurant for an experience, at whatever level it might be. So it's understanding that, and then giving people hopefully something that delights them, that surprises them and satisfies them, and for them to then have a sense of belonging. So ultimately, I think that's what I think. Well, that's certainly what I wanted to achieve.
I mean, I guess that sense of hospitality is probably one of the consistent things, but there must be so much that's changed over the years. I mean, if I think about that first cafe in Oxford Street, even the way that people think about coffee must have changed so dramatically over the decades. What have you seen change?
Look, the biggest. There's so many changes. The biggest thing would be technology, like the internet. Or when I first started, we had cashiers to write up your dockets, and then everything was handwritten. There was no internet now, and now we've got AI and all those sort of things. So that was one thing. And then the dining public has become so much more knowledgeable and educated and sophisticated and knowing what they want. Which is great. because we're all part of this journey. So that was the biggest thing, and it can be a positive and a challenging one too. But lucky for us, certainly we embrace whenever there are advancements in technology and conditions change, and identify them, and hopefully use them to better ourselves and better our product and the experience that we provide.
I think one thing that perhaps was never articulated back in the day, although it definitely existed in one way or another, is culture, like workplace culture, hospitality culture, what was demanded or asked of from workers, and the way that the machine of the restaurant operated behind the scenes. What are the ways that you've thought about workplace culture over the years?
I think when I first started, there was no clocking on or clocking off. You get there and early, and you leave when everything is done. And it was, I guess for me, and it's not healthy back then, like we were doing 70, 80 hours a week. And if you wanted to learn from a great chef or a great cocktail barman or a restaurant manager, you just stick around. You say, look, can I stay? Can I watch? Can I? And that's how we learned. And there would have been many that were that was inappropriate for. That was my choice. We've always tried to have a good balance for our staff, and certainly now with how compliance is, there certainly is a good balance, work-life balance. And it's a great career now for people to enter. Not that it wasn't then, but it was very different then. Like literally every weekend, every night, we were there.
What were some of the points at which you saw that change or decided to change that? Was it, was that driven from within or from, the sort of the society around you? Like what prompted those shifts?
If you wanted to play a long game and you wanted to have your key people that become part of your core and they have a sense of ownership, they can't burn out. So you have to respect that, and you got to try and look after them the best you can. I mean, we all, everyone in the game knows at December, for argument's sake, we all worked that little bit harder, but it could well be that off season that you can take it easy. I'm very much generalizing here, but if you want to have a long association with your team that stick around and have and show loyalty, and that they feel a part of, they've got to enjoy what they're doing, and to enjoy what you're doing, they can't burn.
I guess, the closest team is the family, and your kids have, tied themselves to the business. Tell me about that. Like they were there right at the beginning at opening Aqua, but they were little. How has it come to pass that they've stuck around and now your two sons are taking over?
Well, actually, it's my two sons and my two daughters. My two sons have got two older sisters, so. Look, my wife and I are very blessed. So we met in hospitality, my wife and I, and my love of my life, and one of the obviously the key moments in my life. But my children were born into it. I mean, around the dinner table, we talk about hospitality and so on. So the four of them, they couldn't escape it. That was part of life, and it wasn't a forced career. All four of them decided that this was a natural pathway for them, and lucky for them, they're very good at it. And as I said earlier, they've got that currency. They're relevant. They're at that age, so they represent that demographic as well. And hopefully, as a team, we can identify what's the right offering to put out there. So it was pretty much a natural, to me it was a natural progression, and the energy is just. I'm guessing I had that. I still have energy, but the energy they have is, it's amazing.
Right. Well, okay. So I was told it was your sons taking over, and now I want to know all about your daughters. So tell us about the 4 kids and what each of their roles are.
Well, Anastasia's our eldest. She helps in the development of new sites, but pretty much they've all worked in every facet. So Perry, the youngest of the 4, he's a very much creative and does heads our design, and that's not all he does. Obviously, he and his brother are managing directors of the group, but I think he's gifted in that field, so that's a huge plus. He's got his own team that helps him with design, but that's Perry's domain as well as overarching of the company. Daniel, his older brother, he pretty much heads operations, new sites. As an MD, pretty much oversees the company. Nicola, who's the second eldest, she was a qualified chef and worked under some incredible chefs in her apprenticeship. So she's very knowledgeable in that, and brings a lot of credibility in our when designing our menus and so on. But she's now transitioned to heading our beverage program. So we have a lab that she creates cocktails, concoctions, and we have some incredible beverage offerings that she heads. So that's pretty much her deal. And having said that, they all intertwine and work the dining rooms, and they just have that knowledge. And Anastasia, our eldest, she's worked in every department from accounts to marketing to sales to front of house to back of house. So she, quite often when we look at new sites and we have an opening team, she'll help oversee putting things together with her siblings of whether it be uniforms, whether it be procurement of staff, all sorts of things. We have an amazing team of people, but it's so comforting to know that our family are working as a unit with our team. So in that regard, it's very rewarding for me.
It sounds just delightful and like it's all just tripped along swimmingly, but there must have been some tough times. And, we often hear from restaurateurs about how hard it is, especially these days with, increasing costs and decreased spend. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, Bill?
Look, I remember the GFC was a very scary moment. But that was back in 2008, 2009. That was a very scary moment. But it ended up becoming one of our most successful periods. I think critically identifying what the dining public wants and what their challenges are, and then trying to create an offering that suits them. So, for argument's sake, at Aqua at the time, which I think only had 3 menus at the time, the decision was, okay, I've got to do a more affordable offering because that's what the market wanted. So I think there's part of that. And now there's, obviously there's every morning you listen to the news, there's cost of living pressures, there's, interest rates, inflation, all the rest of it. And again, I think it's identifying that and trying to have there's no point sticking your head in the sand. Identify that and then create an offering that will satisfy the current landscape. I think you also were referring to challenges of a family business. Was that what also you're asking? I guess that, look, we're all very passionate and we love what we do and so on. I think probably the biggest challenge is to remember that your family business isn't everything, and family is family, and sometimes it's not about business. So for me, as the as the dad or the father, patriarch. I try and have some perspective there and some balance. So that would probably be for any other family business, is to not forget that, hey, there's other things to talk about and other things to do instead of business. And it's easy, it can be easily not forgotten, but easily sidetracked, and you just keep, on that vision. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have family occasions where the restaurants are off topic, or is it just sometimes you'll think, well, let's talk to one of the kids about, I don't know, something else?
It's me talking to them. It's them talking to me. Look, naturally, we're so entwined into the business, so quite often that's our discussion. But we're not just that dimension. But you have to be very aware that there's more to life than just that. So that's probably one of the challenges.
I suppose, just as clocking on and clocking off wasn't a topic, neither was work-life balance back in the day. But I think that's perhaps something that overall as a society we've become a little bit more aware of.
Yeah, I think it's always been there. It just wasn't talked about. And, there has to be an understanding with your partner, your family, your friends, but certainly it's front and centre now, and which is a good thing.
One of the things, when we talk about restaurant groups as against standalone businesses, people often talk about the economies of scale that make it, seem like a smart move to scale up. What do you think about that? Like, do you think the challenges of being a standalone business are too much these days? Do you think there is still a place for the high street restaurant, or do you think it's sort of grow or die?
There's certainly economies of scale when you reach a certain size, no doubt. So our buying power would be obviously stronger than a smaller, say, a standalone operation, without a doubt. There is the risk, though, when you are a group, of having excessive middle management or excessive labour, because you're not there, so you have to train the trainer, if you can use that expression. So you have to have those systems in place, which come at a cost. When, for argument's sake, when I first opened my first cafe back in the 80s, it was my business partner at the time, and we're still mates. We literally were doing 100 hours a week, but we couldn't afford to pay ourselves award wages. So we did what we had to do. And when you'd employ staff, sometimes you think it's cheaper not to. It depends on the model, and quite often new novice operators may have not done their planning, and maybe they're not charging enough. Maybe they're charging too much. So what I'm saying is, when it's a very small operation, you can get away with not losing by just working very long hours. You might be, in effect, paying yourself $5 an hour when you work it out at the end. But if that's probably the turbulence you have to go through to get to a certain point. So sure, we have economies of scale, but because of everything has to be proper. Everyone has to be paid. Your labour costs are high. So there's two sides to it.
It's interesting because I guess working 100 hours a week was a pathway to you to, doing the next thing and the next thing, where you can hopefully pull it back a bit. But I think for a lot of standalone operators at the moment, they fall back into the 100 hours a week, or it is actually their business model. It's the only way the restaurant can keep trading. So do you think it's got harder?
I heard that when I was in my 20s, that we used to say, oh, it's harder now, gosh, compared to when you guys were started. When I'd be talking to, my parents' generation, for argument's sake, and then 20 years ago I'd hear the same, and now we're hearing the same. Those who want to succeed will find a way to succeed. It's been happening for all through the ages. And as long as the generation that's starting identifies what needs to happen, and then they make a conscious decision. They'll probably make more money with a good paying job, and that's a great pathway. And those that are driven, that they want to do their own, it may or may not work, but if you want to succeed, there's ways to do it. You've got to put in the hours.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I certainly wouldn't throw up a white flag if I was a young man saying, "Oh, it's too hard." Yeah, no, you can do it.
I love that. What are some of the things you're excited about watching over the next years as your kids take it all on? What other plans are there? What are you looking forward to being a bit of a spectator to?
I think I've been a spectator for a little while, but it's not as if it's you reach a retirement age and they give you a gold watch and see you later. It's our family business. They are far more involved and committed and making the decisions. So, and I've enjoyed that progression and that transition, I should say. I think I'll always, be around, and I guess as time goes on, it'll be a greater shift. But it's already occurred where they run this business, and they should enjoy the accolades of that, because for the last several years they've been the ones who have driven its progress.
So what advice would you give to them or to any young hospitality professional who was wondering about, the next step or how to navigate a tricky landscape? Like, what are some of the principles that you fall back on and that you're glad to impart?
I would say be confident in your decisions, but don't be arrogant. I'd say be decisive, but listen to advice. I'd say be humble, but you should also be proud, quietly proud. I'd say be diligent in your business decisions, but you should also be considerate of your fellow man and have a sense of philanthropy about you within your means. I think we should work hard, very hard, but remember to have a healthy balance. And I think the key to success, regardless of the industry, is surround yourself with good people. Not just your own crew that become part of your team, become part of your extended family, but your consultants, whether it's your accountant or your banker or your all those external people. And I think you're a big part of the way to enjoy business life.
And Bill, what do you love about what you do?
Everything. I just love it. I really get a kick over the years, having done it for almost half a century. You see a couple, they're on a date, they get married, you see you see them come in with their family. This is quite typical. But then many years later, you get a call from the dad or the mum and say, look, John's got a first date, we're booking him a table, just make sure he's okay. And it's you become a part of their family, and that's happened many times. So that's a big, you get a big kick out of that when you've had many years of doing this, and and it could be a number of venues that you've had, but you have patrons that follow you, hopefully because they trust what you're offering them. So that is a beautiful feeling, and just seeing a smile on people. I mean, with all our businesses, we do our mise en place, if you can use that term, our prep. Make sure that we're charging the right amount, we're buying at the right price, we've secured good leases or bought well, or whatever the case may be. The minute the doors open and your guests walk in, forget that. You've already done that, and then you just focus on giving them a good time. And not every table will be profitable, and that's fine. If that percentage starts to become too big, then you have to revisit business model. But I've always felt I've done my planning, so I know that this model should work. And when the doors open, don't worry about it. It's there. Just look after your patrons, because it's not, the customer should be oblivious that you have a business. All they should be focusing on is that you're looking after them.
You know, as you were talking about that, painting that picture, I was actually taken back to the backyard when you were a kid, and just people are there having fun. They're not worried about anything else.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it should be. If we have a business, that's our problem. Or not our problem. That's our business. If a guest comes in, they just want to come and have a good time, enjoy an experience, forget. Maybe they're wanting to forget something. Maybe they want to celebrate something, whatever the case may be. And if you can do that, then it's sincere. So, yeah.
It sounds very satisfying.
Yeah, it is. And that's why you asked. That's what I love. That's why I love what I do.
Love it, Bill. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. We'll have to catch up with a couple of the kids down the track and see how it's all going. But I'm looking forward to my next visit to one of your restaurants.
I hope so. Okay, have a lovely day.
Thanks, Phil.
Having me on. Bye now.
This is Dirty Linen. I'm Dani Valent. We bring you untold stories from the food world. Real, raw, unafraid, hopeful. We're driven by a belief that food provides endless opportunities for learning, connecting, and creating the world we want to live in. Delicious, open-hearted, meaningful. If you know a story that needs telling, get in touch. Write to dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thank you for listening.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.